Good morning, everyone. It is Monday after the Sunday of Week 8 NFL football action. We have just one game left to wrap up Week 8. We had a cold front come in where I live in Texas, and it is cool and it is football weather, and I'm loving it. So let's jump right in and talk about some NFL football. So we had a very good slate of games yesterday. We had no teams on a bye this week, so we got to see, or after tonight, we will have gotten to see all 32 teams in action this week. So obviously, we had Buffalo and Tampa on the Thursday night game. I had Buffalo down for that. That was correct. Jumping into yesterday's games, I had Minnesota beating Green Bay, correct. Dallas beating the Rams, correct. Atlanta beating Tennessee, I got incorrect. Will Levis come in and played very well. New Orleans beating Indianapolis, correct. Miami beating New England, which was correct. Jacksonville beating Pittsburgh, correct. Philly beating Washington, correct. Houston beating Carolina, incorrect. Kansas City beating Denver, incorrect. Baltimore beating Arizona, correct. San Francisco beating Cincinnati, incorrect. And the Chargers beating the Bears last night, correct. Well, my games are kind of out of order on my paper. I had the Jets beating the Giants, correct. And Seattle beating Cleveland, also correct. So, depending on the outcome of the Monday night game, who I have Detroit picked to win, I could end up being 12 and 4 or 11 and 5. I'm shooting for that 12 and 4. Very solid week on the game picks this week. So, with all that being said, let's jump into some of these games. I'll start with my game. Today is the day before Halloween. I am wearing my clown colors. Not really. I don't mean that. I love my team, even though I'm frustrated with them. But they are not they are not a good team right now. And I had the Vikings picked to win. Vikings won 24-10, and I also before the game predicted that I'd stated Minnesota was the only team without a rushing touchdown in the NFL. I predicted they would get there first, and lo and behold, they got their first rushing touchdown of the year. It was the only one of the game that they got, but they still got it. So Minnesota's run offense has been shaky all year. I talked about that early in the year that it was going to be my concern and that the offense was going to really rely on Cousins a lot this year, and that's what they've done. Green Bay held them to 62 yards rushing. Not a bad total, but again, that's a terrible run offense. Green Bay's run defense is terrible. So I'm at least happy they didn't give up a bunch of yards. Had they let this offense run for 140, 150, I'd have been really upset. Uh, Passing wise, they let Cousins throw for 284, two touchdowns, got him two sacks for 13 yards. For the team, they ended up giving up 284 yards because Cousins ended up going out with an injury late in the game. I believe it was in the fourth quarter. And ultimately, it was ruled a torn Achilles, confirmed today with MRI. So Kirk Cousins' season is over. He will not be able to pull the miracle that Aaron Rodgers is trying to pull and play the same season he tore his Achilles. We'll get to that later. Um, so it was really frustrating to me for Green Bay's defense to give up almost 300 yards and two touchdowns to Minnesota's offense when their best player was not on the field. Like, how bad would this game have been had Justin Jefferson been playing? I mean, would it have been 44-10? I mean, it could have been a landslide of a slaughter. Like, you give up 99 yards to KJ Osborne, 88 to TJ Hawkinson, 82 to Jordan Addison. And I mean, really, that's the majority of their yards because everybody else had Brandon Powell had 10 and everybody else had single digit yards. Hawkinson and Addison had the two touchdowns. And Green Bay's defense, again, yardage wise, they didn't give up a lot of yards. Probably one of their better games of the year in total yards given up, but they gave up 24 points. And again, it was without their best player on the field, Justin Jefferson. So, still frustrating. Still, I'm still on the train of I'm done with Joe Barry. I want him gone. I want him replaced. I would not have a problem with him being let go mid-season and someone else filling in. At least give somebody else on the staff a chance to turn it around before the end of the year. But I definitely don't want Joe Barry around after this season. Offensively, it's the same old story. It's Groundhog Day with this offense, and the running game they struggled getting the running game going. I mean, Jordan Love was the leading rusher with 34 yards on 4 carries. Obviously, those were either plays that broke down or designed quarterback runs. Aaron Jones had 7 carries for 29 yards. Not, I mean, that's 4 yards per carry, decent average, but only 7 carries, not really enough. AJ Dillon, 6 carries, 11 yards. Obviously, that's less than 2 per carry. Not good numbers. But what was really frustrating to me is we went into halftime with 3 points. This is the fifth game in a row that we have went into halftime with 3 or less points. A couple of those we went into halftime with 0 points. So the offense is slow to start. It's struggling. It's not getting in a rhythm. It's not getting any consistency, and we dig ourselves a hole that we can't get out of. Going into halftime, AJ Dillon was the team's leading reception. He had like 3 or 4 receptions, and I mean, I don't know what the yardage total was. I don't remember, but he was leading the team going into halftime on just a handful of receptions. Uh, Green Bay has to come into these games with a better game plan, better offensive game plan, better play calling to get some drives started early and sustain them. Even if they're marching the length of the field and kicking field goals, I would be okay with that because you've got to get the offense on the field, you've got to get them in a rhythm, you get them in the flow of the game, build their confidence because they're all young. It's like the youngest or second youngest offense in the NFL. And later in the game, when things heat up and they've really got to do something, they'll be in a rhythm. They'll have some momentum. The last 4 or 5 games, they have not had that at all. So, um, our only touchdown ended up going to Romeo Dobbs. I mean, he had 4 catches for 18 yards. Jones 4 for 17. Musgrave 2 for 9. Uh, Dontavian Wicks 2 for 28. Christian Watson 3 for 33. Dylan 5 for 41, and Jaden Reed 4 for 83. I mean, outside of Jaden Reed, nobody really did anything. I mean, it's just it's frustrating. Love was 24-41. That's barely over 50% completion percentage. He had an interception. The interception really wasn't his fault. It was a pretty decent throw on his part. He put it up there where his receiver could get his hands on it, make a play on it, and he's just in a bad position. And instead of wrapping the ball up, he just kind of, I don't want to say half-ass went for it, but he really didn't he didn't secure it properly, and defender was right there, and it was just in his hands. He took it away. So I can't really fault Jordan Love too much for that interception, but still another interception. And this team is just, we got a lot of work to do. I wouldn't be surprised if Love is not there next year. I'm not saying I want that to happen, uh, but so far I don't think he's the long-term answer unless we see a massive turnaround in the second half of this season. Next, we have the Cowboys beating the Rams. They scored early and often. They scored offensively, defensively, safety on special teams. They had the Rams in a very big hole, 33-3 before halftime. And at that point, they were able to just ride it out and play their style of game. Really couldn't do much wrong. It was a great game for Dallas, but the Rams are not that good of a team. They're a decent team, but they're not that good of a team. And ultimately, I still have concerns with Dallas. They they beat up and they look like a great team against bad teams, and then every few weeks of their schedule when they play a legit team, they don't show up. So Dallas, I need them to show up to Philly next Sunday, and I need them to play like they did yesterday. Not necessarily win by 23, but I need them to be dominant from start to finish and and show me that they're a good team. And in all honesty, what I would really like to see is to see them play from behind the majority of the game and come back and win. Because Dallas is, you look at their track record over the last several years, when they are out in front early, everything's going their way early, they're able to ride that momentum and win the game. And when they are struggling early, they get behind early, they just dig themselves a hole they can't get out of. So for me to know that Dallas is really a legit team in the NFC, I would have to see them go into Philly, get down by 10 points, 14 points early, late first quarter, early second quarter, and then come back and win. That would show me that they are legit, but I don't know. Um, Will Levis come in. Next, we'll go Titans, Falcons. Titans won 28-3. Will Levis come in, played pretty well, had several touchdowns, I think 3 to DeAndre Hopkins. He ended up throwing 4 touchdowns, 19 of 29 completions, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns. Very good game for him as a rookie. It's looking like he's going to get the nod to start Thursday night against Pittsburgh. New Orleans came from behind early and ended up beating the Colts by 11. Pretty good game there. It was, like I said, it was a little bit lopsided early. Then it got close, and then New Orleans pulled away late. Derek Carr looked pretty decent. 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. Taysom Hill really did a lot of damage on the ground. 63 yards on 9 carries, 2 touchdowns. And Indianapolis is still, I wouldn't say they're struggling because they're getting better, but they've got to put it all together to start winning some of these games. They're now sitting at 3-5. Miami, Tua and Hill went off as usual, and they beat the Patriots. Tua has yet to lose to Bill Belichick and the Patriots. That game was 31-17. The Giants and Jets, we had Tyrod Taylor go out with a rib injury, get taken to the hospital. Darren Waller go out during the game, and the Giants were on their emergency quarterback. They threw for a total of 8 yards, I believe. But when you take away like sacks, they had negative passing yards for the game. The Jets were able to move down to get in field goal range as time expired, kick a field goal to go to overtime, and then kick a field goal in overtime to win. Jacksonville now riding, I think, like a 5-game winning streak. They they played pretty well against Pittsburgh. They took the ball away. Had 2 interceptions off Mitch Trubisky. Kenny Pickett did get hurt, but Jacksonville was able to play pretty solid on both sides of the ball, and they were able to hold on and win that game 20-10. And I'll double check in, but yes, this is yet again another game that Pittsburgh was outgained by the opposing team. That is every game this season so far. And like I said last week, sooner or later their defense is not going to be able to carry them. They were not able to yesterday. The Eagles were in a little bit of a hole against the Commanders early, and the Commanders pushed them and tested them all game long, but ultimately, and also saw Hurts played through a little, I believe, a knee injury, but they were able to pull out a 38-31 win. Hurts threw for 4 touchdowns, I believe. Swift had one ran in off of what appeared to be a brotherly shove that they handed the ball off. It was a great look. I think that's a great wrinkle to the brotherly shove. That's going to force teams to not fully commit to stopping the brotherly shove, because if you're so worried about stopping it and stuffing the quarterback, then you're going to have no one to pursue a running back. Great play design. Really liked it. On the note of the brotherly shove, Washington stopped Philly on a brotherly shove and actually forced them to fumble the ball. I don't know if it was a bad snap by Kelsey or a bad handoff, or Hurts just didn't secure it, but they did fumble on a brotherly shove. The battle between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud was a mess of a game with Houston and Carolina. Carolina ended up kicking a field goal as time expired to win 15-13. Uh, Geno Smith's playing really well for the Seahawks, and their defense has played really well. They got up 17 points early. They let Cleveland come back and take a 20-17 lead, and then in the fourth quarter, Seattle did secure the lead for a 24-20 win. Uh, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did not play very well yesterday. Patrick Mahomes was battling the flu, had IVs in him Saturday night, but they were only able to manage to get 3 field goals. And Russell Wilson played pretty well. I believe he threw 2 or 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns in the win. And Russell Wilson is starting to look more like the Russell Wilson we were used to seeing before last year. He really cooked yesterday, made great throws. Patrick Mahomes struggled in the pocket, threw several. I think he threw 2 interceptions, and that offense, the receivers were dropping passes, and Kelsey was not enough to bail them out in the end. And the Broncos pulled the upset on the Chiefs 24-9, and this is the Chiefs had beat the Broncos 16 games in a row, I believe. The last Broncos quarterback to beat the Chiefs was Peyton Manning, and that should tell you how long ago that was. So, good win for Denver. Um, really looks like they played great on defense. Looks like Sean Payton has finally got everyone bought in and everyone in the right positions, and things are really starting to click. We'll see what Denver does throughout the rest of the season, see if they maintain that. Baltimore had somewhat of a close game with Carolina, Arizona, the Cardinals. The game ended up being 31-24, and I say that it was very lopsided early until the Cardinals scored a bunch of points late. But Baltimore looked good, both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, and they are looking good. And they could be one of the top 2, 3 teams in the AFC. Still want to see a signature win against a good team, but they are well on their way. We have Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming out of a bye week playing the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy cleared concussion protocol, which had me change my pick from Cincinnati to San Francisco. I wish I would have kept it because Joe Burrow and that calf looks phenomenal. Joe Burrow looked like the Joe Burrow we're used to seeing on that Super Bowl run they made. This Bengals team looked great yesterday against San Francisco, which San Francisco is still missing Trent Williams. Deebo Samuel's still out, and I think they're feeling the effects of that. They're struggling a little bit on the offensive line without Williams and without Deebo and his speed and the extra wrinkles he adds to the offense. They're struggling a little bit. I said if San Francisco lost 3 in a row, I would be concerned, and I somewhatly am. They've got to get healthy. They've got to get their players back in order for them to really set themselves up to make a run. I believe they're a half game or a whole game back behind Seattle now for the division, or they might only be a half game ahead. I'm not sure. I think they're a half game behind, but they still have time to figure it out. Shanahan's a really good coach. They're going into their bye this week, so having 3 losses going into the bye, definitely not a good feeling, as they said. But coming out of the bye, I expect them to be laser focused and really do some damage. So we'll see how that goes. And lastly, the Bears and the Chargers in the late game. The Chargers come out and had their way with the Bears early. At one point, it was 24-7. They picked off Badgett multiple times, and Chicago's offense was just horrendous. And Justin Herbert looked really good. Came out hot start. I think he either tied or broke his record for most completions starting in the game. Their offense just couldn't do anything wrong early. They got Austin Eckler involved, and they played super well. So, with all that being said, all we have left is the Raiders going on the road to Detroit for Monday Night Football. I expect Detroit to manhandle the Raiders, get back on track, and show that they are who you know they're not the frauds we all expect them to be anymore. They are not the underdog, and they're not the. I mean, they are underdog, but they're not the team that is just gonna lay down and let teams walk all over them anymore. Like they're a tough team, they're a good team, and Dan Campbell has a great culture going there. And I think they will bounce back from that loss last week against the Ravens, and I think they will thoroughly manhandle the Raiders tonight. I think they'll probably, in all honesty, I think they'll win by double digits. That's my opinion. But I have the Lions winning. And real quick, we'll go through some headlines. The trade deadline is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I had said that if Minnesota and Washington won yesterday, I thought both those teams would make trades to improve their teams to make runs. And on the flip side, if they lost, they would make trades to just blow things up and set themselves up for the future. Unfortunately, for Minnesota, they won, but Kirk Cousins is lost for the season. So it's like, okay, how much can you really do to improve your team to make a run without your quarterback, who was the life force of your offense? Really bad situation for Minnesota to be in, but who knows? We could see some moves by them. A lot of rumors that what is it? Chase Young could be traded from Washington, so keep an eye out. I know I saw a rumor that Chicago was trying to trade for him. Not real sure why Chicago would, because they're still in a position where they got to figure things out. But could see could see some fun action at the trade deadline between now and the trade deadline tomorrow. Hot topics around the league. Obviously, already mentioned Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. Uh, Sean Payton is saying the Broncos are not shopping players for trades. Pick it to be a game time decision for Thursday Night Football between the Steelers and Titans. Patriots offense took a blow with their top receiver Bourne, who tore his ACL, so their offense was already struggling. That's definitely not going to help them any. What else we got? Uh, kind of in a I don't really necessarily agree with this move by the NFL, but they have sent a letter to U of H and told them to halt their Oilers inspired uniforms. I know the Titans wore their throwback uniforms, which were Oilers colors, yesterday. I think the NFL really shouldn't have done that, because most of your NFL fans that were Oilers fans that are Tennessee fans and not Houston fans, if they want to buy a jersey, they're going to buy those Oilers jerseys. And I feel like telling a college to stop representing a color from a team that used to represent the city, that's kind of shady in my part, because I think the NFL, I don't think they're going to lose any substantial amount of money. I really don't think they'll lose any with U of H having Oilers colors. Like I think the NFL would still sell a ton of Oilers jerseys if they did put them in the shops. I believe they are, um, but that's kind of a shady move on the NFL on my part. And I say that it's a business move. I get it, but at the same time, like you're in a position where the majority of your money is not made off merch like that. So, and the college, they could be making a decent amount off of it. So I don't agree with it, honestly, but that's me. And lastly, Green Bay linebacker Rashawn Gary signs a new extension, makes him the fifth highest paid linebacker behind Joey Bosa, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa. I think Nick's first, TJ Watt second, Joey is third, Miles Garrett's fourth, and this makes him fifth. Puts him about 24 million per year total with bonuses and all the incentives. He could get up to 107 million out of the contract. Pretty good signing. He's a very good pass rusher. He's coming off an ACL injury and his playing time is picking up, but he's done some damage this year. I, I like the fact that we signed him and kept him, but ultimately, right now, as I've said, I'm done with Joe Barry, and until we replace him, we can keep all our good players we want, but until we get some good coaching, it's not going to help the team a whole lot. A whole lot. So glad he's still there, but we got issues on the coaching staff, and we got to get those fixed so we can get these players to be more effective. Um, so that's pretty much all the topics I have. Um, I think tomorrow, on the topic of throwback jerseys, we're going to go through some of the legit throwback jerseys that teams have around the NFL, ones that look good, ones that look bad. So we're going to hit on those a little bit since several teams have been wearing them the last few weeks, and that'll be a little topic we talk about. We'll go over the Monday night game, and hopefully we'll have some trades to talk about. Hopefully some rumors of potential trades to happen, and we'll go ahead and get ready to lean into Week 9 Thursday night football. So uh, as always, hope your team won yesterday. Unless you were a Vikings fan, I hope y'all lost. Obviously, you won. But if your team won, enjoy victory Monday. And if you're a Lions fan, I hope your team wins tonight so you can enjoy a victory Tuesday. And that's it for now. Over and out.